Do this once, and watch how people treat you differently. It sounds bold, maybe even too simple. But the truth is, respect isn't earned through shouting, proving, or pretending. It's built quietly, through one shift in how you show up, speak, pause, and carry yourself. People are constantly reading you, often without even knowing it. They decide within seconds whether you're someone they can overlook or someone they instinctively respect. This video shows you the one internal change that flips that switch. If you've ever felt invisible in conversations, overlooked in meetings, or treated like the one who's always available, this is your reset. No gimmicks, no performance, just principles, drawn from real life, from Stoic clarity, from moments that you've probably lived but never fully noticed. Watch until the end, because each insight builds on the last. And don't just watch once. Come back to this when you forget who you are. Let it sharpen your presence daily. If it speaks to you, share it with someone you care about. Or just drop a comment below. I'm reclaiming my respect. No overthinking, just write it. And if you want more clarity like this, subscribe. Quiet change starts here. 1. People treat you the way you allow. There's a quiet truth most men never hear until life forces them to. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you tolerate. It doesn't matter how kind you are, how available you make yourself, or how much effort you put in behind the scenes. If you show up in the world as if your presence is optional, people will take it that way. They won't say it out loud, but you'll feel it, in the way they cancel plans on you without guilt, in how they only call when they need something, in the way they talk over you, dismiss your ideas, or leave your messages unread without a second thought. And here's the hardest part. It's not always their fault. Whether you meant to or not, you trained them to do it. You trained them through silence, through shrinking, through endless flexibility, through small phrases like, "It's fine, no worries, and don't worry about it." Even when it did bother you, you thought you were being easygoing. But what you were actually doing was negotiating away your dignity in the name of not making things awkward. That's how a man becomes forgettable, not by being weak, but by being too agreeable to notice. People begin to treat you like background noise because you've given them no reason to stop and pay attention. And here's what's worse. Once they've labeled you as the guy who's always chill, they stop asking what you want. They stop caring about your time. You become the one who adjusts, who shows up early and stays late, who listens without ever speaking, who gives more and asks for less, and they will keep you in that role until you rewrite the script yourself. But here's where the Stoic philosophy cuts through the fog. Respect is not handed out like a reward for good behavior. It's not something you wait for. It's something you quietly command through the boundaries you enforce, the tone you set, the way you carry your silence. Respect is taught by example. It's written into how you enter a room, how you look someone in the eye, how you let them feel the weight of your no. Not every moment requires confrontation, but every moment demands a message. And when your message is, "I'll take whatever you give me," don't be surprised when that's exactly what you get. Think of a man who never sets a price for his value. Others will bargain with him until he forgets he ever had worth to begin with. But think of another. Someone who speaks less, but when he does, his words carry spine. Someone who isn't always available, but when he shows up, he's fully there. Someone who isn't loud, but undeniably present. That's the man who commands quiet confidence. That's the man who earns respect, not through force, but through inner stillness and emotional discipline. If you act like you don't matter, people won't argue with you. They'll agree and treat you accordingly. But the moment you draw a quiet boundary, the moment you stop over-explaining, stop volunteering for every task, stop pretending like you're okay with being overlooked, something strange happens. People pause, they adjust, they watch. Because without saying a word, you've changed the terms. You've reclaimed your space. And that is the beginning of true power. Not loud, not performative, but real. Quiet power. Invisible strength. Self-respect in action. So ask yourself, are you being overlooked or are you silently allowing it? Because the day you stop apologizing for your presence, that's the day the world has to reconsider it. 2. Break the image they've built of you. There's something dangerously comfortable about being known. Once people think they've figured you out, they stop truly seeing you. They stop listening, stop questioning, stop engaging. You become a fixture, reliable, harmless, forgettable. And if you stay inside that box long enough, you might even forget that you ever had corners worth pushing against. People don't put you into that image because they hate you. No, it's far simpler than that. They do it because it saves them the effort of reevaluating you. And as long as you keep showing up the same way, nodding at the right times, shrinking when it gets tense, keeping the peace, they'll keep you filed away under safe, soft, non-threatening. And from that moment on, your growth becomes invisible. But there's a hidden tax in being predictable. The more people can anticipate your next move, the less they respect it. Familiarity may breed comfort, but predictability breeds disregard. Even kindness, when expected, loses its value. Even loyalty, when guaranteed, gets taken for granted. If every time someone pushes you, you fold. If every time someone needs a favor, you say yes. If every time there's tension, you absorb it, then you're not seen as steady, you're seen as soft. And soft is not what commands respect. Not in silence, not in action, not in presence. And here's the twist. You don't have to become someone else to break the pattern. You just have to interrupt the rhythm. It might look like saying no without guilt for the first time. It might look like disagreeing, even if your voice shakes. It might look like walking out of a room you'd normally stay in. It might even be as simple as not responding right away to someone who expects instant access to you. These are not dramatic acts. They're corrections. They're quiet reminders that you are not a character they wrote. You are a man who evolves. And every time you disrupt the stale image they've built of you, they have no choice but to reconfigure how they see you. Think of it like a song. A track that plays the same melody over and over. You stop noticing it. It becomes background noise. But the moment the bass drops or the tempo shifts, your attention snaps back. Same with you. You've been playing the same version of yourself for years. Calm, pleasant, easy to handle. And people have tuned you out. But the moment you shift, the moment you introduce contrast, sharpness, presence, their ears perk up, their eyes follow, and most importantly, their behavior adjusts. Because now, they can't predict you. And when people can't predict you, they respect your presence more carefully. You don't need to scream. You don't need to argue. You don't need to overcorrect into someone loud or reckless. You just need to become less available to their assumptions. You need to challenge the idea that you'll always be that guy, the one who never interrupts, never declines, never draws a line. Because the longer you allow them to think that version of you is all there is, the longer you'll stay invisible in their world. And you were not made to be invisible. So shift, not for them, but for yourself. Shift so that when you walk into a room, people sense a difference before you even speak. Shift so that your presence isn't background, but a signal. So that your voice isn't just heard, but felt. You don't need to yell to be seen. You just need to stop being predictable. And when you do, even once, the entire room will move differently around you. 3. Control the pace, not just the words. Power doesn't always speak first, and it rarely speaks fast. In fact, the most commanding presence in any room often isn't the loudest or the most animated. It's the one who speaks when necessary, moves without urgency, and listens without reacting. Because true power, the kind that doesn't need to be advertised, lives in pace. And most men give it away without knowing. They rush to fill the silence. They answer questions before they're even finished. They respond to texts in seconds, not because they're ready, but because they're afraid to seem unimportant. And slowly they train everyone around them to expect speed, not depth. To expect instant access, not intentional presence. But the man who takes his time, who breathes before speaking, who finishes sipping his coffee before answering, that's the man everyone watches, even when he's not trying to be seen. Think about it. When water flows too fast, it's loud, chaotic, and impossible to see through. But when it's still, even if it's deep, it's clear, reflective, calming. People are the same. The ones who rush tend to reveal too much, too soon, and too easily. But those who move with quiet certainty create weight without noise. They don't chase the rhythm of the room, they become it. Their restraint becomes a kind of invisible influence. When they speak, others pause. When they pause, others wait. And that's not by accident, it's because pace is a signal. And when you own yours, people recalibrate theirs around you. Most men rush because they confuse speed with strength. But speed is often desperation in disguise. It's a need to prove, to please, to be liked. But power doesn't chase. It doesn't explain itself in a hurry. It doesn't respond just because it's been summoned. It waits, it watches, it chooses. That's why when someone calls your name, you don't have to jump. You finish your thought, you finish your task, then you respond. And in that small delay, you've sent a signal. I am not here to react to everything. I am here on my own time. That pause is more than silence. It's emotional self-control. It's a quiet reminder that you are not owned by urgency, and that alone earns you more respect than 1,000 fast words. It also applies in conflict. When someone pushes your buttons, challenges you, tests your limits, and you don't take the bait, that's power. Not because you've won anything, but because you've refused to be pulled off center. And people notice that. They might not say it, but they feel it. The same way they feel when someone walks into a room and doesn't immediately scan for validation. When someone listens without preparing their next response. When someone answers a question like they've actually considered it, not like they're trying to win approval. That energy, calm, deliberate, grounded, is magnetic, and it separates men who lead themselves from those who are led by the reactions of others. So no, it's not about being slow for the sake of slowness. It's about moving with purpose, speaking with weight, and refusing to let urgency dictate your value. Because the world moves fast, and most men get swept up in it, hoping to be noticed. But the one who controls his pace becomes a still point in the chaos. And in a world addicted to noise and speed, stillness is strength. Silence is presence, and presence is power. Remember, the man who controls his tempo controls the room. Not by force, not by effort, but simply by refusing to be pulled off rhythm. 4. Stop apologizing for existing. There's a subtle way men teach the world to overlook them, not through failure, but through self-erasure. It often starts with a word that feels harmless. Sorry. Not the kind that follows real harm, but the kind that sneaks into your sentences like a nervous tick. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I just had a thought. Sorry, I know this might be dumb. What you don't realize is that every unnecessary apology is a quiet surrender. It tells the world, I don't believe I have the right to be here, but I'm asking for permission anyway. And when you do that, even without malice, you begin to disappear. It's easy to mistake this for humility, but humility doesn't mean shrinking. It means knowing your weight and choosing when to use it. Apologizing for your existence isn't humility, it's erosion. Slowly, piece by piece, you carve away your own presence until all that's left is a shadow that others forget was ever solid. And what's worse is how invisible it becomes. You don't notice how often you lead with softness. How often does your voice drop when offering an idea? How your body pulls back when entering a room. You call it politeness, you call it professionalism, but underneath, it's fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being too much. Fear of taking up space that you've never truly claimed. You've probably seen it happen in real life. A man walks into a meeting, says sorry, just wanted to add one quick thing, and no one remembers what he said. Not because it wasn't valuable, but because he told them not to value it. Compare that to the man who simply says, here's what I think, without apology or disclaimer. People may not agree, but they hear him, because he didn't ask for permission to be heard. He gave himself that right first. Even outside of words, the energy of apology lingers. It's in how quickly you step aside for others, how fast you respond to every message like your time doesn't matter, how you hesitate before stating a need. All of it sends the same message. I'm not here to take up space. I'm here to avoid being a problem. But here's the hard truth. People don't respect those who constantly position themselves as problems. They tolerate them. Maybe they even like them, but they do not listen to them. They do not follow them, and they certainly do not treat them as equals. The shift begins with language, but it runs deeper. You start saying, thanks for waiting, instead of sorry I'm late. You replace sorry to bother you with, do you have a moment? You stop prefixing every opinion with doubt. These are not tricks, they are declarations. Subtle ways of telling the world, I believe I belong here. And once you believe it, others follow. Because confidence doesn't need to be loud, but it does need to be firm. It doesn't dominate, but it doesn't apologize either. There is no prize for being the most polite version of yourself at the cost of your presence. There is no award for minimizing your voice so others can feel big. What people remember, what they respect, are the men who speak clearly, who stand firmly, and who take up their rightful space without permission. So if you want to change how others treat you, start by changing the message you send every time you speak. And if that message is, I'm sorry for existing, don't be surprised when the world treats you like you don't. Take your space, own your presence, and never apologize for being seen. 5. The pause is more powerful than the talk. There's a quiet force in the room that most people never notice, and even fewer learn to master. It's not the loud voice, not the fast thinker. It's the one who knows when not to speak, the one who allows silence to do what noise never could. In a world addicted to reaction and urgency, a man who pauses stands out without effort. Not because he tries to dominate the space, but because he refuses to be rushed by it. He doesn't scramble for words. He doesn't try to outtalk others. He simply waits. And in that pause, something powerful happens. The room adjusts to him. Because silence, when held with calm presence, changes the rhythm. It makes people lean in. It creates weight before a single word is spoken. You've probably seen it in a meeting. Someone answers a question the second it's asked. Their words spill out fast, polished, maybe even clever, but forgettable. Then someone else takes a breath, holds eye contact, waits a second longer than what feels comfortable, and then speaks. That person doesn't have to fight for attention. They've already earned it. Their restraint draws gravity to their words. It signals inner strength, not insecurity. And the strange thing is, they may say less, but what they say lands harder. Because the pause before the words gave those words a place to fall. Most people fear silence because they think it's empty. But silence is never empty. Not when it's chosen. It's filled with control, observation, and emotional clarity. People who rush to speak are usually seeking reassurance. They want to fill the space so they don't have to feel the discomfort of not being noticed. But that need to rush sends the wrong message. It tells the world, I don't believe I'm worth waiting for. And if you don't believe that, why would anyone else? A man who speaks with quiet conviction, who pauses before he answers, who holds silence not as absence but as presence. That man doesn't chase respect. He becomes the kind of presence that commands it naturally. It's not about being mysterious. It's not about games. It's about self-command. The ability to withhold, to process, to respond with intention instead of reaction. That's emotional strength. That's the core of Stoic calm. And it's rarer than it should be. Most men were never taught that stillness is a language. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let a moment breathe. Whether in a disagreement, a decision, or a declaration, silence gives weight. It allows what you say next to have shape, direction, and meaning. There's another layer to this. The man who can hold silence in a tense moment doesn't just control himself. He controls the dynamic. When everyone else is scrambling to be heard, and you sit steady, composed, untouched by the noise, people start to look at you differently. You're no longer just part of the noise. You become the calm center of it. And calm is magnetic. Calm is unshakable. Calm is respected even by those who don't understand it. So the next time you're in a room and someone asks your opinion, don't rush. Let there be a pause. Not a fearful one, but a grounded one. Trust that what you say will matter more if you believe it's worth waiting for. Because the pause isn't hesitation, it's power. It's not weakness, it's awareness. And in that space between impulse and response, you redefine yourself. You shift from reactive to intentional, from noise to signal, from presence to influence. Say less, say it well, and let silence finish the rest. 6. Your self-worth sets your market value. You can't expect the world to value you more than you value yourself. It simply doesn't work that way. People may not know your story, your skills, or your depth, but they do know what you signal, and the signals are constant. The way you speak about yourself, the way you walk into a room, the way you handle being overlooked, ignored, or challenged. These details, subtle as they are, become the price tag others use to decide how to treat you. If you present yourself like clearance stock, don't be surprised when no one offers full price. And the painful truth is that most men give discounts on themselves long before anyone asks. Watch how two men carry themselves. One walks in with posture, focus, and clarity. He isn't loud, but he isn't lost either. He looks like he has somewhere to be, even if he's just grabbing coffee. The other walks in, eyes scanning the room, body apologetic, presence uncertain. Maybe he over-explains why he's there. Maybe he stands too long in the wrong place, hoping someone pulls him in. Who do you trust with a challenge? Who would you bet on in silence? The answer isn't about charm or charisma. It's about the signal. Confidence, not the arrogant kind, but the still, unshakable kind, is a currency. And those who have it get treated differently before they say a word. You see this in everything. Two watches, same design, same material, but one sits in a velvet case under soft light, the other's buried in a bin by the exit. It's not just about the watch, it's about the message. The same thing applies to you. You can be high value, but if your energy says, "Please pick me," people will walk past you. Not because they think you're worthless, but because you didn't show them anything worth pausing for. That's not on them, that's on you. Self-worth is not about proving anything. It's not about rattling off accomplishments or trying to convince anyone you're important. It's about not needing to. It's about holding your space without apology. It's in the way you respect your own time, how you carry quiet confidence, how you say no without over-explaining, how you protect your energy like it actually matters. When people see that you don't tolerate disrespect, they stop offering it. When they see you don't need validation, they start giving you recognition, not because you begged for it, but because your presence demands it. That's what emotional self-control does. That's what a calm, disciplined posture communicates. I know what I bring. You're free to match it or miss it. It's easy to think value comes from external proof, from someone giving you a title, a compliment, or a role. But the Stoic mindset flips that. The true measure of your value starts within. It's your job to set the tone. And the moment you decide to stop chasing approval, to stop lingering for crumbs, to stop reshaping yourself to fit into places too small for your dignity, that's when your price changes. Not in words, in weight, in silence, in energy. Because people don't follow men who beg to be seen. They follow men who already see themselves. So before you ask anyone to value you more, ask yourself, have you set the bar high enough? Have you protected your energy like it means something? Because your market value is never truly decided by others. It's only ever confirmed by how you carry your worth. And the moment you stop underselling yourself, you'll be shocked by how quickly people start raising their offers. 7. Walking away is the ultimate power move. There's a kind of strength that doesn't raise its voice, doesn't argue, doesn't plead. It simply walks away, and in doing so says everything that needed to be said. Not out of pride, not out of ego, but out of clarity. The man who knows his worth doesn't stay where he's disrespected, undervalued, or drained. He doesn't wait for someone to recognize his presence before he decides it matters. Because when you stay in places that no longer serve you, you're not just being patient, you're teaching others that you'll accept whatever they give. And they learn quickly. They learn you won't leave. No matter how they speak to you, how they exclude you, how they minimize you. They learn that your boundaries are suggestions, not standards. And the longer you stay, the more you confirm it. But something changes the moment you walk. Quietly, without needing to explain, without making a scene. You simply say, "No more," and mean it. You leave the job where they kept dangling promises. You leave the friend group that only calls when they need something. You leave the conversation that insults your intelligence. And suddenly, the air shifts, because people don't expect it. They expect you to stay, to endure, to bend. When you don't, it forces them to face the part of themselves that thought you'd always be there. And that reflection is uncomfortable, because it reveals they never earned your loyalty. They just assumed it. And now that it's gone, the absence is louder than any argument could be. That's the irony of walking away. It's not an act of conflict, it's an act of self-respect. Like a magnet, The more you chase, the weaker your pull becomes. But when you hold your position, when you don't beg, don't cling, don't justify, others feel the gravity of your stillness. They may not say it, but they sense it. That calm distance that says, I am not afraid to lose what disrespects me. That distance speaks volumes, especially in a world where people are addicted to needing something from everyone. When you need less, you command more. Because power doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from not needing to. And this doesn't mean being cold or ruthless. It means being free. Free from the invisible contracts you sign with people who think they own parts of you just because you've stayed too long. It means refusing to be emotionally blackmailed by guilt or fear or the illusion that you'll never find better. Because you will. But only if you make space for it. And that space begins when you step out of the rooms that shrink you. When you stop entertaining energy that drains you. When you leave the conversations that don't include you and the tables where you're only ever served silence. The real shift happens not just when you leave, but when people realize you were willing to. And that realization changes everything. Suddenly, they remember your value. Suddenly, they're careful with your time, your presence, your energy. But here's the key. By the time they realize it, you're already gone. And you didn't need to slam a door or write a speech. You just needed to know your worth and act like it. So walk when it's time. Not because it's loud, not because it's easy, but because sometimes the clearest boundary is your absence. And sometimes the most powerful message is the one you never have to explain. If you want the world to respect you, stop waiting for permission. Every quiet decision you make, to say no, to pause before speaking, to leave when you're no longer valued, tells the world who you are. You don't have to shout to stand out. You don't have to fight to be heard. Your presence becomes powerful when it is rooted in self-respect, emotional discipline, and quiet confidence. And once you stop apologizing for existing, once you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, something shifts. You no longer chase validation, you embody it. Apply even one of these changes and watch how people respond differently. Apply all of them, and you'll become unforgettable. Not because you demand attention, but because you carry energy that doesn't beg, doesn't bend, and doesn't break. That's what builds true influence. That's what sets lasting authority. So which shift will you make first? Drop your answer in the comments. Share your experience, a moment you walked away, a time you stopped over apologizing, or how you reclaimed your inner power. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if this message spoke to you, like the video and subscribe for more ways to protect your peace and sharpen your presence.